Alright, Bojack here. Hope that's a better camera angle. It is exactly 12:51 a.m., but not really. I'm here again with another video about learning, more specifically how to build the foundation of learning, to learn how to learn, which is very, very important to do, because if you don't have a foundation of learning, then, you're just wasting a lot of time and all that stuff. And yeah, you're gonna want to learn how to build a foundation, or like the 4 basics that I did get from Your Wish Is Your Command a while back. But let's get on with this video. I do say a lot from Kevin Trudeau. I have learned a lot from the guy. I think of him as like a mentor and stuff like that. I see that with a lot of trepidation because Kevin gets a lot of hate, and I've had some bad experiences with material, but I still think of Kevin as a great teacher and as like a great mentor, even though I've never met him personally. Yeah, saying that, this isn't a technique video on different learning methods, like the Feynman technique, or the different styles of learning, like being a kinesthetic learner versus a visual learner. Those are all great things to learn, and I'll definitely add them into a future video. But for this video, this is just the basic 4 foundational learning steps or basics that I learned from Your Command that I think is different than what is normally out there, and that way you can see, unless you actually have the program and you ran through it. But I'll do like a full Your Wish Is Your Command CD series review later with all the information. And yeah, I mean, we are all grown adults. I'm not trying to preach to the choir that, oh, you don't know how to learn. Maybe you don't really need the 4 foundations, but if you do learn these 4 foundational basics, you will have like a good tilled soil, so to speak, of how to learn. And I am ripping off a lot of this information, but who cares really? Let's delve into these 4 basics and go into detail on each one of them. Now, each of these 4 basics can be taken apart and have entire research papers written on them. I mean, that's cool. You don't have to go hour upon hour on how to delve deep into something. I mean, you should as you advance further into your studies and whatever you're studying, I guess. But like a person or plant, you are either dying or you're thriving. You're increasing the depth of your knowledge and your understandings of life, both mental and spiritual, or you're just not doing anything and just being a nerd and just watching TikTok all day. And, I'm not trying to preach to the choir, but you should feed good information into your head every day and not the wrong information, basically. So I quote Napoleon Hill a lot, and he does say, do not be a jack of all trades type of person, meaning do not have like a surface knowledge of subjects, but become a true master. You have to become like an expert, really know everything there is to know about your field of study. Really try to know your stuff, master your field, reap the benefits. You'll become a more interesting person, but it's really up to you. Self-learning really is the key here, because at the end of the day, none of us really have like super genius mentors like Napoleon Hill did with Andrew Carnegie, or Kevin Trudeau did with the Brotherhood or whatever. So supposedly that doesn't really matter, but you can always, maybe you do have great teachers in life. But the best mentor you have is yourself. And you can teach yourself almost anything these days with the power of the internet. And all media is at your fingertips. Remember the first video I made about reading books and gathering information, how important that is. I mean, it doesn't have to be books, but art as well. YouTube videos, podcasts, audio booklets, and so on. Now, you should do all these things because your brain, like your body, needs food every day. Mind food, not social media, TikTok. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That is really cool to do, but you should probably not keep doing like meaningless things. You should learn meaningful things every day, and be a self learner. Learn something new every day. Keeps you younger. For you older guys watching this, and it's fun. Secondly, and life's about enjoyment at the end of the day. Anyway, enough of that. I'm sure you get the idea. Let's move on to the crux of this video, the 4 basics. Now, the first basic or foundational principle of success is, who do you listen to? Now, like I said before, this channel is in the business of gathering information and learning more and ultimately master all information. That's like my goal in life right now. Maybe your goal is different. Maybe you just want to learn how to be a gardener, or you just want to learn like something simple, or anything, not simple, but like, something cool, like physics. I am trying to make like a physics course at some point based on every book out there. Now, like I said, I'm not a college professor or anything, but I do want to compile knowledge into this channel and actually like bring benefit to people, But let's say you want to be like a master gardener / botanist. That's not really a good example, because like most books on botany, I think, are pretty solid. I've never really ran across a book of botany that is like trying to mislead you or has fake information. But in the field of success, like, I'm not very successful myself, but I will say I've read like a bunch of books on success, and I will say most of the books on success are pretty useless, are really wrong information, and there are very few books that I think are very meaningful, but I'll explain that more. Now, on a going forward basis, let's think for a moment here, because we want to be critical thinkers. We don't want to be raw memorizers. So if you want to be a master in anything or have a high degree in understanding the subject, you have to get the information from the right sources. Now, how do you know who and what are the right sources? Is it your mom, your dad, your sister, your friends, books you found? Now, I'm sure those people are like very knowledgeable. Maybe they know more than you. Maybe they're more learned. Maybe you should learn from them. But I'll explain that in a bit. Maybe you should trust the book you found, because usually books in botany are pretty good. I use a bad example, but bear with me here. Information is better. Now, like I said before, most of us, I never had real mentors. Like we weren't like Padawans, some master guy who could teach us everything. Or had people who guided us and filled me in of all knowledge. Of course, we had school, teachers. All of them I had are great individuals. But at the end of the day, the school system, I believe, is rather flawed, both in terms of the information that's presented to you, the student. It is sort of like brainwashing, because you are learning a certain curriculum and a certain agenda that the teacher is pushing out on you. I don't really think going to school, maybe college is different. I have been to college a lot, but true learning is stuff that you do on your own and stuff that you know about. Anyway, I have been reading this physics books that I only read like half of, and I kind of lost the book on my Google Drive or whatever, so I have to go find it again. But the point is, it's about being a self-learner, and how this guy wasn't always a great student, but he learned how to self-learn and taught to become a great physicist by, teaching himself the books and I guess thinking about the theories and all that stuff. But more importantly, he said that how students today, college and high school, aren't really being taught how to be innovators or valley crossers, I think is what he said. I mean, most teachers today won't say that. Maybe they do say that, but, I think teachers today mean well. They just don't have all the resources to teach you, like, everything you need to know. So basically, it's like you're trying to learn physics, and they only have like 1 hour a day to teach you everything. And the teacher might be like not just teaching the information you need to know, and you have like 1 hour every day for 3 months, and if you don't understand something he said, maybe you missed a word or something, then you just wasted a whole lot of time, and that's not really the best way to learn. I mean, I did say I'm trying to make a physics course pretty soon. I have to buy all the books, and I'm trying to make it really comprehensive. Like I said, I don't really have like anyone guiding me, so I have to look up stuff on the internet and read all the books I can, read all the lectures. Of course, going to college and getting a better degree. I mean, getting the degree of physics would be an optimal course, but I don't have like $60,000 to go into a good program right now, so self-learning is all I got, basically. And maybe you do too, I don't know. And of course, I might be wrong. There may be teachers out there that know all the information, that can teach it to you, but they don't have like 20 hours a day to teach you everything. So there is tutoring, but when you're like lost, you know, well, what can you do really? But let's move on. Back to the book I read was on innovators versus non-innovators, or the hill climbers versus the people who cross, or the students who cross valleys. Now, climbing the hill is good for students who want to learn the established theories, which is important to learn because you do need to know, like, you know, what the foundational theories are. But it's not just learning that established theory and becoming a memorizer and learning the equations. Now, I don't know what, you know, physicists really do in the field or in research. Maybe that's how it works. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if they're like trying to push the field further, or if they're just learning memorization and calculations. I don't know how it works. I really don't know. I don't claim to know. I'm just, you know, saying what the book guy said. I'm sure it's more complicated than that. But basically, the Valley Crosser students are the ones who would innovate the field. They combine the physics theories in new ways never before seen. So it's like you learn the theories, but you also think beyond the theories and how to progress humanity, which is like the point of, I guess, being a physicist. I don't know. Maybe you're just in it for the money. I really don't know. Now, of course, maybe you do have to be like some sort of genius to create new physics theories like Stephen Hawking or something, but I don't think you have to. If you want to be a Valley Crosser, I don't think you have to be a super genius. I do think you can, you know, I guess, advance the field in your own way. Maybe tweak the theory, experiment, learn more. That's really the crux of this channel, learning more, being more. Anyway, let's get back to my earlier point of who do you listen to. I'll just give you the answer. There's no real point hiding it. It's really simple. The answer is you have to listen to people or subject material who have what you want, and more importantly, have been where you are. Example, if you want to be a great basketball player, okay, you really do have to be like super tall to be a great basketball player. Maybe you have to be super athletic. Maybe you have the right attributes. But, you know, there are some short guys making the NBA and has super awesome careers. But that's not really the point I'm trying to make here. Let's say you just want to be a good basketball player and you want to up your game. You can only learn so much on your own. You can watch all the YouTube videos. You can practice on the court by yourself or whatever, or with friends or whatever though. I mean, but that can only take you so far. You have to find maybe a coach that can teach you everything about the sport. I mean, maybe you don't need really a coach, but really this is just an example, so let's not think about it. So if you want to be a great basketball player, would you go to like a gardener to learn how to be a great basketball player? Obviously not. The gardener doesn't know anything about basketball. Maybe he played a few hoops when he was younger, but I really don't know. I mean, maybe the botanist knows how to play basketball, but for the point of this video, we're not going to the botanist to learn how to be a great basketball player. Now, would you go to Michael Jordan, Jeremy Lin, Steph Curry, and any of those guys? Would you go to them for knowledge about how to be a great basketball player? Maybe. I would say yeah, maybe 100%, maybe 50%. But there is one problem to that. They never really sucked at basketball. They always, succeeded. Maybe they didn't always succeed, but they never truly sucked at basketball. They were hyper talented individuals. They of course practiced thousands of hours to hone their craft, but they never really sucked. I'm not saying you as a person suck at basketball. Maybe you're a great basketball player. I really don't know. But if I was wanting to be myself a great basketball player, I would find a basketball teacher or coach, maybe wasn't in the NBA but was a good player, but who also had the experience of maybe not being so great a player. That way they can relate to you and teach you, or I guess guide you in a way better, because of Steph Curry might be a good teacher for you if you're a great basketball player already. What I mean by this, basically, if Steph Curry were to teach you, he's coming from a different place. You're coming from a different place because maybe you're at different levels. Maybe he can't really relate to you. Maybe you can't really relate to him. So, point is, you have to find a good mentor who was at your level in that subject at some point in their lives. They can guide you properly to the level where you want to be, which is mastery and stuff like that. Now, how do you find these people? It's a harder question. Well, there is a quote: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I don't know, maybe that's not really true, but yeah, that's why maybe browse Indeed or something. I'm not really sure. And yeah, I am reading off a script, guys, but I gotta keep my thoughts straight somehow. So whatever. This is why there is a third point to the first basic. The person you ultimately listen to is yourself. This is self-explanatory, but at the end of the day, you aren't an automaton blindly following the orders of someone, but instead, you should be self-reliant and be one who practices discernment. You should look up that word. Now, looking up words is very important, because if you are reading a text and you come across a word that you don't know, and you skip that word, maybe you don't know the word electric displacement. You just read it and you're like, oh, I don't know what it is, I'll just read ahead. Maybe there's a context clue there, but if you don't know what the word is, then you get lost. You don't understand the rest of the material. Maybe you don't really. Maybe some of you can just learn it somehow by magic, but you're gonna want to look up that word. You want to master that word, understand that word, go into depth into that word. Then when you do that, you have something magical that happens to you. You understand the word, and the information that flows after that word makes more sense. You have more understanding, basically. Anyway, I will look up the word discernment, which I think is something you should know. There's a bunch of definitions, but taking the main one, the ability to judge well. Now, why did I just bring up the word discernment? Because the ability to judge well is very important when it comes to sifting through information, because one, you don't want to get the wrong information, and two, you don't want to waste time. We all have a finite time on this earth. We want to learn the correct information, or the right information, or the useful information. Like Sherlock Holmes says, you take the information that is useful, or, well, that's not really the right quote, but I'm making my own quote. You take the information that is useful, and you discard what is unuseful. So, I do like to quote Napoleon Hill on his book, The Law of Success in 16 Lessons, which is a really old book that you don't really have to read. But in the book, he does say your true nemesis is time. He is your enemy across the checkerboard, basically. If you're not utilizing your time properly, you're losing time. And I don't know, I'm only 30 years old, so I do have a lot of time on my hands. I think of time like money. I didn't really utilize my time super perfectly growing up, but the point is, you're either utilizing your time proficiently or you're not. It's like you're a kid who's 16, get a job now, because when you're 30, you won't have the same earning potential. By that, I mean, well, you'll have maybe more earning potential, but I mean, you'll make more money if you start now at 16 rather than 30. There is a huge difference in earning potential there. Now let's move on. Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, but So the first basic when gathering information or learning something is to find something or someone who has what you want, the knowledge you seek, and more importantly has been where you are, your current level of understanding on a subject. Now, the third component is very important and more important than the other two, and that's ultimately to listen to yourself, because maybe you find someone who has what you want. They have the knowledge you seek, and they also have been where you are. They were at your current level of understanding, so they can relate to you better and teach you better. But maybe their teachings, maybe their methodologies don't mesh well with what you believe. Because at this point in your life, when you're like old, maybe when you're a kid, you just blindly follow people and stuff like that. No one really is in control of you. You can take even my word as just, opinion. Really, it's all opinions. I mean, nobody really knows everything. Nobody really knows what everything really is. We have good guesses, but, whatever. You get the idea. It's up to you what type of information you want to put into your own head. I mean, you can find the right mentor and everything, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to discern for yourself to see what is the right information for you and what isn't. Now let's move on to the second basic, which is the teachability index. This is the most important that I think this is the most important basic, because if you don't have a high teachability index, you won't really learn as much as possible. A good example is a guy who goes to music school but refuses to learn from the teacher because he believes he knows everything. The guy may be a great self-taught clarinet player, so to speak, but he'll never be super great because he's not teachable enough. He doesn't want to learn more. He doesn't want to do any more. Whatever. Maybe that's what he feels like doing. I don't know. I'm sure most people who go to music school want to learn. I mean, why else would you pay all that money anyway? But, you get the idea. Now, there is an actual score you can use to assess yourself on where you're at in terms of the teachability index. The two criteria is a willingness to learn and a willingness to change. Both are out of a scale of 10, 1 to 10, which I'll get into in a second. So let's go deeper into what is your willingness to learn the subject you want to learn. Let's say you want to be a great pianist. You found a great pianist who was like at your level at one point. What is your willingness to learn? How do you discern what is your willingness to learn? Basically, what are you willing to invest into the program? How much money are you willing to give up? How much time are you willing to invest? How much of yourself are you willing to give to learn that subject of being a pianist? Maybe the pianist lives 5,000 miles away from you. Are you willing to get up? Maybe that's a little too much to ask, but are you willing to fly all the way over there and maybe potentially learn from him, or that great pianist, or whatever? That's an extreme example, but get the idea. What is your willingness to learn? So right now, the viewer, assess yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. What is your willingness to learn the subject you are trying to learn? If you're at a 1, just put it down on a piece of paper or something. If you're a 10, check yourself again. What is your willingness to give up things to learn the subject, which really shows what your willingness to learn is. Let's say you're willing to spend 24 hours a day learning something, and you're willing to give up anything, whatever, to have that 10 willingness to learn. If you do all that, you probably have a 10. Now the second question, and more important, is, well, not more important, but what is your willingness to accept change? By that I mean, are you willing to accept the information you are being presented? Are you willing to change as a person with your newfound knowledge? Are you willing to understand more and You know, I mean, you don't have to accept it 100%, but are you willing to change your habits, perhaps, based on the information you learn? Remember, the first basic is listening to the right person and material. That way, when you do find the right person, you just should go all in, learn whatever you can, change however you can. And yeah, I'm not saying follow them blindly, follow me blindly or anybody, but you should have an open mind and always be willing to learn something different. So, what is your willingness to accept change? If your willingness to learn is a 10, I did say there was a, I guess, arbitrary number you can think of, or like a percentage. So let's say you have a willingness to learn, that's a 10. But your willingness to accept change for the information is like a 2. So you go 10 times 2. It's like 20%. You have an F. So basically, you want to be high up on both categories. Categories being your willingness to learn the subject and your willingness to accept change on the subject or information related to subjects. Both are very important. Now, what do you do if you have a low willingness to learn or a low willingness to accept change? The answer is really simple. It's up to you, basically. Because the teachable index score does go up and down. For example, you're learning something, maybe physics, for 10 hours a day. Maybe you had a score of 90% and you get too much information and it drops down to 50%. In that case, rest up, learn more later, maybe grab a snack, perhaps delve deeper in the subject to learn more. It's really up to you. How hard can you push yourself? You can always learn more in any subject. You should never say, I get something, like 100%. You should say, instead have a high understanding of this subject, but I can always learn more. Remember, there's always more to learn, more to understand, and all that. Sorry, hold on. My computer is just... Hold on. Okay. Let's delve into the third basic, which is the training balance scale, which I also got from Kevin Trudeau, and he does use the scale to teach the law of attraction, which is like a metaphysical law that governs our reality or binds our reality, whatever you want to say. But basically, this is the third basic. I will tweak it a bit for our learning here. Now that being said, the training balance scale has two sides: the thinking and the why, the doing, the actions, or the how, the techniques. So there's two sides: the thinking, like why you're doing something, how you're thinking about it, and then there's the doing action side, the techniques, how you follow through. Now, which side is more important? According to Trudeau, the thinking is 99%, and the actions and the doing are the 1% of the success equation. And when you factor in the law of attraction, it sort of makes sense. If your thinking is right, then your reality is right, but that's not really the point of the third basic. If we're just talking about like physically on a macro scale, let's just say you're doing all the action you want, but without the thinking and the attitude behind your actions, you won't get very far. Think of the guy chopping trees relentlessly without rest compared to his, co-worker who's chopping another tree, but takes the time to sharpen the axe and get adequate rest. Who do you think went further in chopping down the tree? Probably the guy who sharpened the axe and got adequate rest. Anyway, the point is, remember the training balance scale and always focus 99% of your efforts on the thinking side. Because without the proper thinking behind your actions, you won't really get anywhere. Well, maybe you won't go nowhere, but you won't move as far as you have without the proper thinking behind your actions. Because with proper thinking and imagination, you can, improve the techniques and your action and stuff like that. An example would be a boxer who knows all the techniques in the world, but has no thinking capability outside of those techniques. Well, maybe he'll beat some guys, but maybe he runs into a craftier guy who has more discernment, the ability to judge well. I mean, yeah, you can have all the techniques, but if you don't know how to think, then you lose. So basically, focus 99% of your effort on the thinking side and 1% on the actual physical processes and techniques. So without the thinking portion of your knowledge seeking profession, you become a walking automaton of knowledge, which is cool in a way, but like I said before, it's better to become a better thinker than a rote memorizer. Remember, we want to cross valleys, not go up hills. Anyway, here's the final basic, well, the second to final one. I'll talk about the fifth step, which is really simple. It's just one sentence. That's all you gotta do, and I'll talk about it later. Anyway, these are the 4 steps when you are learning something. Any piece of information. There is 1, unconscious incompetence, meaning you don't know anything about the subject or technique. You never heard about it. You weren't interested in it. You just didn't know anything about it. You're starting from 0 at that point. You're just at complete ignorance on the subject. You don't even know it exists. 2, secondly, you're at conscious incompetence. This is when you realize how dumb you are or realize that you don't know the subject and are conscious of your incompetence. This is important. Maybe like you now go from ignorance, complete ignorance, to being aware of your ignorance. This step is very important because you are going from the first stage to the second stage. Now, the third stage is where you now learn about the subject or technique. You know how to do it, like tying your shoelace, but you still have to think about how to tie your shoelace. This is a better stage because at least now you know the subject, even though you have to consciously think about how to apply it. Now there is a 4th and final stage, which is unconscious competence, which is true mastery, where you know the technique and you do it unconsciously without actually having to think about it. This is when the information is in the knowledge bank. You have reached an apex point at that juncture. Of course, you can always learn more, maybe tweak the technique or the information a little bit, but you have reached mastery on it, and you don't have to move further if you don't really want to. I think sports is a great analogy as an example of the 4 steps of learning any information. So for example, you want to learn how to box, perhaps you start at the first stage. You just walk into a place and you just see 2 people fighting or boxing. You know what it was, you just think like, oh wow, that's a great sport. You go from unconscious incompetence, not knowing anything about boxing, to conscious incompetence where you know about boxing now. So let's say you go to a gym and you find a coach who fits all the criteria of gathering information, and he teaches you how to throw a jab, how to throw a right cross, how to cut angles in the ring, how to slip punches, how to formulate battle plans and stuff like that. So you know the information and you can do all that consciously. You're at the 3rd step now, after like maybe a few weeks, few days, whatever, depending on how fast you learn. So maybe after a few years, after a couple of amateur fights, maybe you reach unconscious competence and you can throw the jab perfectly. You can cut the ring off effectively without thinking about it, and you can execute all the coach taught you without thinking. Now you're the coach. You're the master. Maybe not, but you get the idea. Now, how do you get to the unconscious competence level in any subject? Unconscious competence being the non-thinking or mastery stage, which is where you want to be. There are 2 methods that I learned from Your Wishes to Command. Maybe there's more, but for the sake of this video, there are 2 methods. The first is to copy someone else doing it, meaning you observe someone who is good at the subject and technique, and then you copy what they do. You know, monkey see, monkey do. Now, of course, you have to practice discernment when doing this, because maybe the master didn't really do it right. I mean, maybe he did it right, but he did it in his own way, and you want to do it a different way, and you know, whatever. Which leads us to the second way, which is trial and error and your own experience, which I think is a little better than copying someone else or how talented. And I go back to the fighter example. Maybe they taught you to throw a jab a certain way, but you found a better way through trial and error and doing it over and over again. But if you do anything over and over again, you will reach some sort of unconscious competence on any subject. So it goes from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind, and through what's called auto-suggestion and stuff like that. I don't really know which is better. Maybe there's more ways. Well, you know. Anyway, there are 2 ways for the sake of this video. Copy someone else or do something over and or do a technique over and over at the conscious competence level, and tweak the technique and knowledge as you progress. Well, that does it for the 4 basics. I didn't really delve super deep, but I think I went to good quality on the 4 basics. There is a 5th basic, which is basically master the first 4 basics. Sorry, my nose is so stuffy. But master the first 4 basics. If you do that, you have a great foundation of learning which you can build off of, or don't do it. It's really up to you. This is really all up for you, the self-learner. That's pretty much it. Bojack out.